I want to welcome all of you to another episode of our weekly show, Solutionaries. This is where we look at various issues that are happening in the world with the environment, around sustainability, and an old broken paradigm of design. And we like to look at innovative solutions of what we can all do to help bring solutions to some of these issues. I'm really happy. I had an opportunity to meet through a mutual friend, Rachel Linden from Green Lifestyles Network. I had the opportunity to meet our next guest. He's a man of a few different brands. He has green technology along with Patriot Green. And we're not going to just talk today because even though we're talking, we're going to talk about actual solutions and some of the work that he's doing. So I want to welcome to the show, Kevin Fretz. So welcome.
Hey, thank you, Michael. It's nice to be here, and hello to all of your guests.
Great. So just to start off with, again, I met you through Rachel Linden with Green Lifestyles Network. I know she was doing a lot of work with non-toxic communities and talking about how to get towns and cities, counties, and municipalities off of their addictions to various pesticides, herbicides that are contaminating our water, contaminating us, our children, and the ecosystem. And I know that's a huge area that you work in, but I want to thank her for connecting us. And I did pronounce your name correct, right?
You did. Fretz, like on a guitar.
Oh, perfect. So today we're going to, in the time we have, we just want to kind of introduce our viewers to a little bit of your work. And but let's talk on a personal note a little bit about who Kevin Fretz is and what you do. But what got you inspired to take on this type of work?
Well, thank you. What got me inspired was, first of all, I'm from Canada originally, raised on a very small farm in Ontario, where myself and my family were sickened by water and soil contamination. That really changed my life in many ways. And at 17 years old, I spent time in the hospital and had about 1 year of bed rest due to injuries that I received on the farm from the contaminated soil and water. And that really changed my life because I wanted to go off to college. And I had big dreams of doing different things. I wanted to be actually a policeman, or I wanted to go in the military because that's what my family did, our family members, or cousins, and so on. And I couldn't do it because of my injuries. So ultimately, my struggles led me to getting to the source of pollution. And I thought the best way to get to the source of pollution is go and learn about recycling and waste management because it was waste related. So in the 90s, I left our farm in Ontario and my family, and I moved to the west coast of Vancouver, British Columbia. And I landed a position with Browning Ferris Industries, or BFI Waste Systems. They were the second largest waste and recycling company in the world at the time. And so I was lucky enough to be involved in the first commercially collected organics program in North America. It was a pilot we did in Vancouver to see if we could divert food waste and pretty much anything that was organic from landfilling and compost it and bring those products back into the market. Worked on that in 1991. And then in 1993, they asked me to come to California. Same company. We were in 18 countries around the world at the time. And I think we had 27,000 employees. Pretty good sized company, second to waste management. So I went for an interview in California, which was in Irvine, California. And I was interviewed with several ag chemists. They asked me to help them to launch their organics program in California. The California state had mandated the diversion of wastes from the landfills because their landfills were filling up and closing. So the alternatives were recycling. That was the only alternative because they couldn't burn the waste. So organics made up 30% of what was going in the landfill. So I was asked to go into this new organics division, and when I was interviewed, I thought that they wanted me to do what I did in Canada. And they said, no, we want you to work with the team. You are working on product development, marketing, and sales. And I said, I don't know anything about composting. And they said, well, you lived on a farm. I said, that doesn't mean anything. We didn't do commercial composting. This is a whole new different thing. So they said, the truth, Kevin, is you're all learning, all of you. You're pioneering this new industry. So I worked for them for another year. And what I saw was very disturbing because the materials coming into the facility were heavily contaminated with medical waste. I saw hypodermic needles. Then there were bleach bottles and oil cans and diapers and dead animals and all sorts of things in this supposed green materials that we were going to make fertilizer out of. 1 year into their program, they decided to end the program. They had liabilities. They were sued. They had a fire. They had a lot of problems. They were producing toxic materials, which killed a nursery, completely wiped out a nursery. They settled everything. They're a good company. I would say it wasn't their fault. They were handed this problem by the city and the state, but it was a mess. So I left, and rather than being transferred to another division, I founded my own research and development company in late 94, early 1995. And the mission was that we would create clean materials, higher standards than what were in place currently. The EPA standards were the lowest of the G7. So I sought to find higher standards because I wanted to create something that was different than everyone else. So I worked with the Ministry of Environment in Canada and Victoria. They provided me with draft documentation and really helped me to understand why we needed to have cleaner materials, less heavy metals in the product. And I worked with my local laboratories, and we created standards for cities, for the state. Also, I supplied all the major hotels in Las Vegas because of the standards being so stringent and so high quality. It was there I met Dr. Elaine Ingham, soil food web scientist, probably world leading. She was lecturing the same day I was, and I was astonished with her work, and it was like a light went on in my head, and I thought, wow, I understood agronomic chemistry, but I really hadn't delved into soil food web science. And of course, she wrote her thesis 40 years ago at Texas A&M, and in my opinion is a world leading scientist on the subject. So I've studied her work for many, many years, and I saw that there was a bridge that could be built by utilizing her technology, still using chemistry, but really working with what she had developed to maintain green spaces that were non-toxic, that mimic nature, but from a scientific perspective, understanding the food web, the living components of soil, and what the values are, which include.
Well,
Go ahead.
if I may, just real quick, it's fascinating because you got into this whole career and industry really because of your personal experience, and through that, I just want to acknowledge that it takes a certain level of compassion and heart to be able to say, like, I want to actually make a difference. It's not just about profit over people, but I actually want to do something that's going to make a difference, especially since you had your own personal experience growing up on the farm. And what's fascinating, what I'm hearing as you're telling your story, you're being drawn deeper and deeper into this understanding and this emerging innovative science and culture that was, again, with our shows that were providing you with answers and solutions. And I do want to say, too, that as people listen to this broadcast, that there is a real disconnect right now between, what we do as consumers, what we basically put into our trash, our recycling, and our landfill. And we just kind of have it whisked away and we don't really think about it anymore. But the implications of it on our food safety and security, our groundwater, our water safety and security is really explicitly nefarious because, again, people don't tend to think about, I turn the tap on, I get water, I throw the trash in a bag, it goes somewhere else. But really, I think we're finding out right now through science and these innovational fields that all of it, even with microplastic, all of it somehow comes back to roost in our in our biome, in our digestion, in our bodies, in our gardens, in our families, in our pets, in our communities, in our lawns, in our playgrounds. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because even though, and I want to commend you for having this compassionate and educated approach, but you're not just talking about, you're doing things on a major level, like you said, with states and townships and governments, and making huge progress. But I did want to acknowledge, because besides the work you're doing, really responsibility starts with the individual before it even gets this bad, where thankfully we have people like you who can step in and help to bring some of these solutions. So I just want to connect that for some of our viewers who are like, oh, this guy's going to take care of all my problems. I don't have to have any responsibility whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Michael. Thank you. Our problems in the world, I believe, are waste related, are pollution problems. It's either solids, liquids, or gases. And nature, as we know, doesn't waste anything. Everything is a closed loop circle of life. And we've been all living in an artificial world, so to speak. Our cities are artificial environments. They adopted what we started using in agriculture 70 years ago after the war, when we converted, bomb chemicals into fertilizers, defoliants into, pesticides and herbicides. So the system worked that they created, but it's very toxic. And over time, it's become a point of, I would say, diminishing returns, both in agriculture and horticulture, because when you think about what those technologies do and what they accomplish, is they accomplish burning out the soil. The nitrogen creates bacterial blooms in soil, and they grab onto the nitrogen, but they also eat up all of the carbon, and it's all released. So what is soil? Sand, silt, clay, organic matter. Well, when the organic matter is gone, and the silt starts to leave, you have sand and clay, which make terrific brick. So over time of tilling and opening up the soil to those conditions, it becomes uninhabitable, I should say, to beneficial microbes. They can't live in those environments anymore. So we're growing food in a petri dish. Amaticides kill everything in the soil to make it sterile. Prescription approach. And that approach has caused a lot of devastation. So we know now how to resolve those problems. We know how to heal the soil, and we will heal the environment, because when you heal the soil, you're going to end runoff and issues like that. And what does the runoff cause? It causes, problems in our rivers, streams, our oceans, which then causes problems for the fish and the birds. And it's just a chain effect of pollution. So getting to the root of the problem is what we do.
And I want to acknowledge, I had the benefit of you sharing with us a little bit about a couple of your brands, Green Earth Technology and Patriot Green. So I'd like to share a little bit. We live in the age of visual stimulus, and we
Sure.
love our eye candy. I mean, people don't want to necessarily just see us for an hour, see us for an hour. So I could, if you like, I can go over to one of those two websites I have pulled up. And if you want to give us a little deeper dive and drop in as far as the work that you're doing, which one do you want to start with?
Why don't we start with Green Earthology first?
Okay. So you can continue to chat for a minute. Tell us a little bit about what Green Earthology is while I pull up the website.
Green Earthology is a consulting company. Green Earthology is an intellectual properties company. So of the over 3 decades of work and the networks that we've developed throughout that time, that's what Green Earthology is. Green Earthology is a company that can go into a city or a community or a farm, and they can create a program for them that helps them to recover waste assets, improve soils, improve the environment. And no, that's the wrong one.
Okay.
That's not us. That's not us. Green Earth Technology.
Let's go over to Patriot Green. It's obviously a very popular name. I think people are starting to wake up and think alike here. So if you want to give us a little explanation about Patriot Green, and I'll go back to Green Earthology here.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
Patriot Green is our products company. So what began as learning over the years and developing the soil science and the products, we've now put this into a company called Patriot Green. Because we're a company that wants to give back to our communities, we want to acknowledge those who sacrifice for us, for the things we take for granted, like our freedoms. And I mentioned I was from Canada, but I became a US citizen because I believe in what our founding fathers believed in this country. And this country became the greatest country on earth because of our diversity, not our divisiveness. So Patriot Green is a company that acknowledges our servicemen and women, also our first responders that are out there protecting us. When you have a problem, you call 911. You're sure happy that we have our police officers to come in and help you. Nothing's perfect in any, established organization. Nothing's perfect, but we must acknowledge them. And then, of course, adults with disabilities. I was an adult with disabilities for over 20 years, and some days they come back, even with me. My wife has a son that is disabled. He has Fragile X syndrome. So we have a heart in caring for those people, and we know a lot of these disabilities are caused by, environmental pollution. So we are at war with pollution.
Oh, yeah. I had an epiphany then when you were talking, and you probably have heard this: "Make America Green Again."
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right. Anyways, so I'm gonna pull up another page here. So what are some of the things, again, for people who are listening to this broadcast and are like, obviously we have to, if we're not part of the solution, we're probably part of the problem. So what are some things that people can do, some very helpful solutionary tips that you could suggest for people to make your job easier and also to do their part in this great kind of like re-greening or regenerating of these recycling, waste management, and agricultural industries that you're connecting and connected to?
There's a lot of things you can do on an individual basis. Get involved, get involved with your community. Know where your food is coming from. Question the government. Question government regulations. Are they good enough? I've seen that, look, the government has regulations in place. Some of them are really old. As an example, the EPA 503 regulations, which were developed to find a solution for sewage sludge, which they now call biosolids. Those regulations are really, really old, and they're inadequate, and they're not protecting the environment. Most people don't question the government. And, as an American citizen, that's who we are. We're supposed to be questioning the government because we, the people, are the government. So they've been hired to do a job, and we shouldn't get lazy about, working with them, helping them, giving them some guidance. Because if we sit back and do nothing, how can we complain when things aren't working out? So we can't throw them under the bus, but at the same time, they need our direction.
Well, I have to say I appreciate your approach, because we do have to build bridges. There's a famous saying by Buckminster Fuller: "Don't fight the problems, create alternatives and solutions," and which is really at the heart of the whole concept of innovation. So I like the fact, and this is really how I've approached things. I used to work, decades ago, with super funds and cleanup projects, and trying to do things with Ralph Nader and stuff around consumer protection. And so I saw the importance of making change kind of within the system, but then I realized that for me, I was much more effective about maybe not working so hard in the system, but working on focusing on creating different types of alternatives to, the status quo, let's say. So, okay, I found your website. Here we go.
There we are. It's Green Earthology. Yeah, so Green Earthology was created as a consulting company. And We've worked with universities, we've worked with cities, we've worked with independent waste management companies. Dr. Ingham has done a lot of work with me with Green Earthology. She's on our team, actually. So, fixing these problems requires that we take a holistic approach to fixing things. I mean, the way things are currently set up, the government creates the mandates and regulations, and then they contract the work out to waste management companies to manage the problem. Waste management companies are not environmentalists generally. They're haulage companies. They do the best they can, but they're handed sometimes a big problem. I mean, I mentioned it earlier with BFI. It wasn't BFI's fault that the material was contaminated, but the government said we need to divert these materials from the landfills, and it's your problem to fix. Well, we've resolved those problems, but it has to be looked at through environmentalist eyes. Environmentalists are not waste management experts, and waste management experts are not environmentalists. So when you have both of these folks out there trying to manage the problem from a bipolar perspective, how do we expect we're going to solve the problem unless we come together and work together and respect each other to go fix these problems? And that's who we are. We'll work with anybody. We don't look at companies and point fingers at them as if they're polluters. We look at companies that are polluters as opportunity to help them to adapt or adopt new, cleaner technologies that make them more efficient and allow them to make more profit and allow them to hire more people. That's how we should look at companies, except we don't look at companies that way. We attack companies. And the reason I say that is when I worked for Browning Ferris Industries in Canada, and we were implementing these organics programs, I had to sit with some CEOs of manufacturing companies. And I would sit down, and I was always passionate about our recycling programs. And one time I remember this, the president of the company looked at his watch, and I went, uh-oh, I guess I'm talking too much. He said, Kevin, look, I appreciate your passion that you want to make things better and clean up the environment. He said, look, I run this factory. I don't know what to do with the waste. That's why we hire you. Okay. My job is to run this factory. So I'm depending on you to do what should be done with it. And if you're going to help the environment, great. Well, that's the truth. So industries that were developed on a linear path from our past, yeah, many of them are polluters right now. But we should be stepping up to help industry, because those are the companies that are helping put our kids through college. Those are the companies that are doing a lot for society. So rather than being negative about industry being polluters, we need to be proactive, step up, and go and help those businesses to become better, more profitable, and cleaner. And it can be done because the technologies exist. They do exist.
It just is there the political will to actually do it. And I think that's where, sometimes the corporate mindset is the bottom line, the stockholders, and also, unfortunately, and I've seen this time and time again, they put profit over people, and it's discouraging sometimes because there's even a disconnection of empathy for even people's own children or grandchildren or future generations to do the right thing. And sometimes it's that unbridled capitalism, again, that puts profit and the bottom line over people and health and the environment and community. And I think right now, truly, we're kind of at a tipping point where more people are starting to realize, that there are solutions to these things, but we also have to all take a personal responsibility. And luckily, we have people like you that are bringing big solutions and innovation to huge industries, but inevitably everyone plays a role in making this transformation and this change.
No, I appreciate that. And what I want to say about the profit issue is that's where we've been very successful. You're absolutely correct. In the past, because things have been so profit driven, there's been no empathy for the environment. However, the solutions are more efficient and they drive more profit. So we're able to get the message across to people that we're not environmentalists, that now you can make more money by cleaning up the environment. And that's really our message. So we use capitalism to our advantage to clean up the environment. It was capitalism that created the problem, and it will be capitalism that's going to fix the problem, in our opinion, because for the companies that don't adopt the cleaner standards, well, capitalism is going to take care of it because their competition will end up taking market share from them and they won't be in business any longer. So we go to people with an olive branch in our hand, not a stick. And we say, we're here to help your business, to make you better, more profitable, and cleaner. And here's the technology to do it. Sewage sludge is a good example of that right now.
So in the few minutes that we have left, tell us a little bit about, I want to share this book too, because again, I like what you were saying too, because there is an interconnection of many different aspects of society, the environment, humanity, industry. I mean, we live in a interconnected ecosystem, and I've been really enjoying this book from Paul Hawken.
Regeneration, ending climate
Yeah,
crisis.
I know I'm on blur setting right now just because I'm
Okay.
not in my studio today, but it's called Regeneration, Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation. And it's in a great book because, in regenerative design and solutions, we're looking at things like oceans, forests, what happens with wilding, people, the relationship to land, food, energy, industry, also rural living as opposed to urbanization. And it really is a fascinating book that brings a lot of insight about these ecosystems are connected. But also, I love what you're saying because in the work that I do with Earthstock Foundation, we really look at what's called full spectrum regenerative design. We have to not just look at these ecological elements, we have to look at the human elements, but we also have to look at other areas that are influenced about, health, wellness, but also the ideas of sovereignty, of governance, of the idea of economics, and also media, because, and that's why, even before the pandemic, I was doing a show called The Golden Road, called Bridging the Past with Today for a Better Tomorrow. And I did probably about 500 of those shows. And then during the pandemic, everyone went online and everyone became a podcaster. Everyone has a show, and which I think is great because people are putting their voices out there and we get to see a myriad of different perspectives. But for me at that point, I kind of evaluated and rebirthed what Golden Road was and turned it into two direct shows. One is the show which we're doing today, Solutionaries. Another one is one of our IPs, which is called Regenesis, because we look at the confluence of human beings, the environment, and all these different aspects. And this is not content you traditionally will hear in mainstream media. I mean, corporate media, really loves to kind of addict people to the endorphins of fear and dualism and conflict, and we see in films so many things. So that's kind of the role of corporate media, is to get your viewership and generate the bottom line. But shows like this and many others that people are doing, we're trying to bring, we could say alternative, but I don't see how there's an alternative to a healthy environment and healthy people and bringing solutions, but to bring alternatives to the old, which is becoming more obvious right now, the old broken down toxic paradigm that's been so dominant for, I mean, really since industrialization. And I love it, like you said, the approach is like, we're not demonizing anyone. We have to figure out how to collaborate and work together and co-create these solutions.
Sure. And I mean, the economic side of things is a good incentive, especially for those people that don't have the same passion and care that we do. So when you can show them the money, they're tend more to lean in that direction. And since we do have the technologies to fix these problems now, industry is going to come with us. And the ones that don't, well, they will become extinct like dinosaurs, because the markets, this is where I believe in capitalism, and the markets will drive things because people do want to have better food, cleaner water, cleaner air. They want those things. But nobody's really showed up with a solution that works for everyone. It's either one-sided, and we're going to regulate businesses to a point where we're going to either they do what we want or we're putting them out of business, or we find something that's balanced that we can help them and lead the way. I wish our government, when we regulate things, I wish our government had a department that would actually work with and help businesses to grow. They're part of our communities, for crying out loud. Here's an example before we shut off. We'll just say this. I was flying up to Vancouver Island. This was about 2006. My mother, unfortunately, was passing on, and she contracted cancer very young. She was also sickened on our family farm. So I was flying up. I was leaving Seattle and flying up to Vancouver Island, and a lady sat down beside me on the airplane. And I always believe that things don't happen by mistake. There was no coincidence in who she was. So we started talking. She said, "Where are you going?" And I told her what I was doing. And I said, "Well, what are you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm an editor of an environmental magazine. And I'm heading up to Vancouver Island because Neil Young and Bachman Turner Overdrive are doing a benefit concert." And I said, "Oh, I'd heard something about that. And what's the benefit?" She said, "Well, it's the paper mill. It's the paper mill that is a problem, and they're spewing toxins into the air and the water and so on." And I said, "Yeah, I'd heard about that." And I said, "So what's your goal?" She said, "The goal is that we're going to raise money and we're going to do testing and we're going after them." And I said, "I appreciate the work that you're doing. I really do. But I honestly believe you're going about this the wrong way." And she said, "Why is that?" I said, "Well, I've heard about this more now." I said, "You may be successful at shutting down that paper mill. And when you shut down that paper mill, you're going to destroy the entire town. People are going to lose their houses. Kids are not going to be able to go to college. It's going to be very destructive. And that paper mill will move somewhere else where there are no regulations, or the regulations are lighter, and they will pollute." I said, "Pollution knows no boundaries, no provinces or states. It goes everywhere." I said, "You know what you really should do? You should go meet with Neil Young and Bachman Turner Overdrive and all the other bands and put together a benefit concert and do a benefit concert all over the world to raise money and put it in a foundation. And then go back to companies like that paper mill and say, 'Hi, we're part of this foundation and we're here to help you to become cleaner because we know you're polluting. And we've got technologies and we're here to help you with a grant. And the province is prepared to put up low interest loans to make you cleaner and better for the community. And we have a marketing department. We're going to promote your company as being a better steward with the environment. So you'll gain more market share. And if they don't do it, I can guarantee you one of their competitors will. And when their competitors take an approach like that, it sends a message to the entire industry that change is coming, and you either get on the train, get on board, or else we're leaving you behind. And that is how we're going to fix things. We're not going to fix things by fighting with each other anymore. We can't show up with clubs in our hands and saying, "You will do this." Because if left up to the government and the environmentalists, well, they can see the problems and they're passionate about it, and I respect them for that. But we're solution driven. We've been working to create the technologies to fix it. So we have to integrate the technologies and we have to help industry to transition over. Right now, we've got governments shutting down farms in Europe. We have protests all over the world. There's a lot of unrest. We've polluted, not we have, but our government endorsed the land application of sewage sludge. They've destroyed thousands of farms across the United States with PFAS. So now those farms can't grow food anymore. We're in a crisis right now, and we need to find our center in all of this and all work together to fix it. And that's who we are. We're here to fix it once and for all for
Amazing.
our children.
Amazing. I'm really glad that we've been able to connect, and the wheels are turning about potential enhancing collaboration. But for people who don't know, before we go, just explain for a second what PFAS is.
Well, PFAS are known as forever chemicals. These are related to plastic production. They don't break down in the environment, and they can give you cancer. So they're a carcinogen as well, and they can get in the food. So the reason why those farms can't produce food anymore, because that PFAS that's in the soil, which is toxic in parts per trillion, they're finding it in parts per thousand, and you can't grow food in that because it will, become bioavailable to the food, and the folks that eat that food could be sick. So the good news is that we also have technology, biological solutions that we can apply to the soil to clean up the PFAS. So we do have that available to us right now. We're going to go out and help clean up these farms.
Fantastic. I know there's a lot of solutions out there. I know people that are doing mycological remediation, and I know Paul Stamets has kind of been a champion of mushrooms saving the world.
Yep.
And then, of course, there's biochar and other solutions. And
Yep.
again, just for people who might not know, where do you come to understand, where do most of these PFASs come from? Is there a particular product?
Industry in general, yeah. We're dumping all of our industrial waste into the sewers. So, not only that, we're dumping hospital waste into the sewers. They're liquefying human bodies and putting them into the sewers. So then we have vaccinations in the sewers. We have everything in the sewers right now.
I remember during the pandemic, I had actually moved out to Colorado just to and this is really right when the pandemic started ramping up, the spring of 2020. But I knew in California, they were having chronic issues. There was so much plastic gloves that were being used and distributed against, protecting people against bacteria and viruses, that literally the sewage and sanitation and water systems all across California, and even specifically in the Bay Area, which has one of the largest water estuaries, most essential water estuaries in the world. And that's why we did the Sacramento River Watershed Project for about 10 years, talking about, again, inorganic agriculture, chemicals, fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides, golf courses, schools, Caltrans, weed abatement. I mean, the list just goes on. That's how I met Rachel Linden. But even in trying to bring, protection to people, but the lack of awareness and how much chemicals and products were disposed of was just, it's really unfathomable in a way. So yeah. I want to thank you for the time today. I know you're busy. And for those of you who are watching, I've had the honor today to talk with Kevin Fretz. And he is one of the driving engines around incredible work with Green Earthology. And I see your website, greenearthologyinc.com. And also what you're doing, very practical, helping to get green products out into the marketplace based on your extensive background working in commercial level projects and industry and with governments and people who are the decision makers. You have your patriotgreenproducts.com. So thank you so much for your time. And before we leave, maybe you could leave our viewers with a little input of inspiration or just some practical solution-based knowledge of, again, what can they do right now to help increase the solution and become part of the positive change.
Sure. Well, thank you, by the way, Michael. I appreciate your time, and it's been an honor to be on your show. So to all your viewers, one person can make a difference. So, my story of being disabled for 20 years, when I was disabled, I couldn't read or write for 20 years because of my injuries, because I had neurological disabilities, but I overcame those disabilities, and all people can overcome, but you have to have faith, don't give up, keep moving forward, grow your own food, know what's in your soil, spread the word to your friends, neighbors, churches, talk to everybody. We all have to come together and start working together on this to solve these problems for our children and our grandchildren. So anyways, it's been a pleasure to be here, and it's nice to meet all of you. And thank you again, Michael. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you. And I'm inspired for more connectivity around solutions. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in, and there'll be more to come. This is kind of just our next step of getting to know each other and building this co-creative and unified field of implementing solutions. Earth Stock, our slogan is for everyone to take stock in people, planet, and future. And sometimes I really think I'm like people, planet, and having a future. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for all the incredible work you're doing, and have a great Earth Day. Continue
Sure.
the amazing efforts, and we'll be donning you the green knight today because you're working at such an incredible level. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, everyone, and keep up the great work. Bye-bye. Talk to you soon.